Now that's an arbitrary line that they've picked. That's the one that they enjoy. The one that I support is generally the one we had under Roe v. Wade. All right. So if anybody's aware, maybe you might have heard of him. His name is Destiny. He has blue hair. Recently went on the whatever podcast, decent name, I guess, to debate Lily Grace, who I don't know, and Kristen Hawkins, who I am familiar with, about abortion. I want to look at just a short clip to kind of give us a little taste here, and then we'll kind of flip around and just kind of get a little sampling of random sections, because they all last a couple minutes. So we'll take a look at those. But for now, let's take a look at this. This one seemed fun. I saw this exchange and was like, ooh, that seems spicy.
The term.
I think it's a horrific situation, and she needs support and care. And
yep, true. We all know this. I don't know why we're talking about it, but go ahead.
But what is the next step in that? It's not to take the life of this innocent, now conceived third party. It's not to end that life. That's not going to the 11-year-old. It's not going to untraumatize the 11-year-old. In fact, it might traumatize her even more. By the time with a young survivor, it's usually into the second trimester. That's going to be a very traumatic act that now kills her baby, and she's still having a birth process just of a child.
Sure. So then if the 11-year-old is pregnant and is scared, and then she goes to a doctor looking for an abortion, should you charge her with murder?
No, because in that case, she's an 11-year-old who's the victim.
You can still charge adolescents with. You don't have to try him as an adult. You can try him as a child.
You need to answer the question.
You were saying that in your world, if you're wrong, it's the biggest genocide in the history of the fucking universe.
It is.
And then you were saying, in my world where I'm wrong, some women have been minorly inconvenienced
for 9 months.
For 9 months, big whoop. But that's not true. In your world, if you're wrong, 11-year-old girls are being convicted of murder or conspiracies to commit murder.
Destiny, no one supports that.
Yes, if you're an 11-year-old girl, could your 11-year-old kill their younger brother?
I mean, theoretically, since you like hypotheticals, if there's
I do like hypotheticals because
if there's a case
I've heard he does like hypotheticals.
By adults in the United States and then get pregnant. Go ahead.
Sheesh. See, yeah, okay, yeah, oh yeah, fucking sriracha. Oh no, Matt Walsh is trending with Dylan. Oh no, are we at it again? One moment, we're gonna take the off ramp really quickly. Why is this trending again? What the fuck is this? Transgender was invented by pedophilic psychologists, degenerate quacks, and lunatic sexologists, literal Nazi scientists, and other assorted deviants. A collection of the most despicable monsters imaginable came up with it. Dude, this dude lives in a fucking fantasy world. Oh man. Did he show up to named a bunch of Jewish doctors as being pedophiles and Nazis who invented trans people? The idea that trans people only just started existing is now straight up doing. Wait, what is? Oh no, what is this? Transgender? Yeah, I saw that. Let's go with this convo. Yeah, we will, absolutely. Magnus Hirschfeld. I think I have to say it with that accent, right? Magnus Hirschfeld was born into a large Jewish family in 1868, German city of Cottbus, present-day Polish city of Kotzebue. Fuck, I can't read that. He studied medicine and became a doctor in 1892. Hey, that's 100 years before I was born. Hirschfeld's early work was as a physician. Okay, I'm bored. I'm kind of bored. Can I get German? Okay, cool. Key facts. Famous doctor, helped pioneer study of sexuality and gender in late 1800s, early. Gotcha. Believes in the natural diversity of sexual and gender identities was radically different from the traditional views of sexuality and fixed gender roles that were widespread at the time. Wait. The Nazis don't believe in a wait. The Nazis don't believe in natural diversity of sexual and gender identities. They're rigidly okay. In May of 33rd, Nazis looted his institution of sexual science and destroyed much of the archives. Oh, wait. So is what there is an he was targeted by the Nazis. Fucking read. Oh my god. Okay. I should have known he can't read. Okay, we're done with this. All right, let's take a look. Let's see some time codes. What do we got? Okay. Oh yeah, let's see here. Looking at January 6th, it's not about morality. It's about facts. If you truly thought that the nation was being stolen by corrupt bureaucrats, then storming the Capitol would be an act of bravery, an act of national obligation. But since most people think they were wrong about the steal, then that's why we oppose it. Well, yeah, they were incorrect. You can Smaggle, what you have to understand is if we went with like, so there in terms of law, there is like intent. It's why we have a difference between like I think it's actual like murder and manslaughter is because there's like intent tied to that. But like what the January 6ers were doing, like they were already under the belief that like all this stuff was happening, which was all bullshit and all lies. And then they broke the law to do so. And if they were right, they would have led an illegal revolution. And if they were wrong, they still were leading an illegal revolution. Like either way, they were on the wrong side of the law. The difference is that like we live in actual reality and they live in like Earth 825 or whatever the fuck. Women respect the strong, so I must train to be, let's see. Pro-life, let's go. Yeah, we'll do that. Millions of dollars. I read that women respect the strong, so I must train to beat my crush in a wrestling match for her hand. I believe you have to beat her father. Isn't that usually the thing? You have to grapple with their father. Pro-life, but that one pro-life woman was super hot and she dated me. Oh my goodness. Down there in the Nazi book burnings at 33. It's more than 20,000 books. Jesus. Let's see. Start at the top. Maybe let's start with everyone's original stances.
Pro-life, or in your case, pro-abortion or anti-abortion. What is your basic stance on abortion?
My basic stance.
What the fuck? What is this other thing? A. What is this little green thing? B. And C. Where do I get the 90s cups? I want those.
Is we try to figure out what is a person. What makes a person? Person is granted some positive, some negative rights by governments, and probably morally.
Never met him, but I'll take your word for it.
We also grant people some type of right. I don't believe that a person is a collection of cells. I don't believe that a person is just a body with a brain. I think that very specifically when we speak about a person, we speak about something that has the capacity to deploy a conscious experience. Because that tends to be the thing that we're usually talking about when we're figuring out if somebody's alive or dead, or whether or not somebody ought to be protected. When we say a person, when we say who is suffering, we don't say what is suffering. We're not talking about a body. We're not talking about a heartbeat. We're talking about a person having an experience. So when I try to think of abortion, I try to think of who is being harmed. I would say that for 20 to 24 weeks, that's about when the scientists say that the brain has all the parts necessary to begin communicating, to have a conscious experience, that about at that point, there is some experience there that we can speak of as a who or as a person. But prior to that, the first trimester, that really experience is not happening yet. So if you want to have an abortion, there is no who that's being harmed. There's just a what, which is whatever the body is up to that point. So generally, I'm pro-choice in first abortion up until that conscious experience has been formed, because I think that's what's worth protecting, because that's when we look to see when somebody's dead. So that's what we should look to see when somebody's alive.
So are you...
Okay, so that's basically my stance, I would say. Because we already have, like, the problem with the repeal of Roe v. Wade is it flattened, or at least my issue with it, is it was a flattening of the standard of care, because, like, what is viable at 1 week is not the same thing as what is viable at 26. And to say that there's harm created equally in both those scenarios, to me is, I don't believe that. I don't believe that whatsoever. Certainly there is a point in which we recognize that a human life has begun, even if birth hasn't necessarily happened. But that means there's also a point in which we are pre that point, that threshold being passed.
You anti-abortion after 20 or 24 weeks?
Yeah, after 20 to 24 weeks.
And
oh
all
my
abortions,
God.
Anti-all abortions.
I always
after
forget how
20 to 24
insufferable
weeks.
With
Kristen Hawkins
the obvious
is.
exceptions of like ectopic pregnancies or life of the mother or something like that being threatened. Yeah. Easy. Yeah, of course.
I mean, considering ectopic pregnancies are literally life-threatening, like, yeah, that women should not be forced to almost die for a birth that almost certainly won't produce a life, like an actual life. So,
and your positions on...
So we share a position, but Kristen, I'm sure will have her way she wants to describe it.
I think
I think that all humans have human rights. by nature of being a human, you are a member of the human family. And so any member of the human family, and this is actually the
human
preamble
family
of the Declaration on Universal Human Rights by the United Nations. So for those that think they have any authority, I don't know if you do, Destiny, they say that all members of the human family deserve
is the
to be
human
protected
family?
and treated by the law as persons.
Mhm.
And so if you're a member of the human family, you have human rights. And we know when you become a member of the human family, it's at the moment of fertilization. It's very clear. A single cell embryo comes into existence. And so I believe human rights for all humans. And I also want to build a society of love and justice. And the way to do that is to treat people equally under the law and to protect the most vulnerable, especially children. Children deserve more protection actually than adults because they are defenseless. And so we should actually go out of our way to do what we can to.
In mine, I have the speech of Simone Veil at the Assemblée Nationale in '74, and verify the amount of weeks here in France. Is that the 14 weeks? Is that like you guys can have an abortion until 14 weeks? That's actually lower. Well, that's lower than the old standard in the U.S., but that's cool.
Protect children and never commit homicide against them. So that's my pro-life position.
Cool.
I definitely think the line is like, the line's really malleable, and I have no problem with like, no, actually no. I was gonna say I don't really have a problem with like, with communities kind of deciding where that line is, but to me at least, I don't know if there should really be a legal like threshold per se, or at least like a hard legal threshold. What we had with Roe v. Wade, I think, was adequate because it allowed like doctors and their patients make as many informed decisions as they could up until the point of, up until there was like a hard cutoff that I think was around like the 20 to 24 weeks. But I don't think passing laws to like mandate that is helpful or pragmatic, because once you erect those barriers, then like doctors and patients have to live within those, even if they are not what's medically best, I suppose.
This position, I'm against the strong being able to choose whether or not the weak or the vulnerable get to live or die based on someone else's perception of them or their convenience factor to another person. I think that's a very slippery slope,
really?
And I actually think the position
Unsatiable.
you represented
I'm gonna have to
is a
boot
very
you.
dangerous one, because what
Unless
you're
you
saying
wanna
is you have
clarify
to
that
be
rape
not only
babies
a
line.
member of our species in order to be a person with rights, the very basic right to life, but you have to be a person plus. And it's a very exclusionatory class of what you're doing. You're excluding a whole group of human beings. So I guess my question is, are there other human beings you would exclude that you don't view Destiny as persons?
Not for this debate.
Okay.
No,
Okay. Cool.
Here's a question. Actually,
That is true.
Let me respond to your question with a question.
That is. Yeah.
You guys say that humans are protected. Do you agree with that? That humans ought to be protected, or
Well,
humans are given?
more specifically, humans have human rights. So
Yeah, okay.
protection can mean different
You really
things.
hate
but
humans
the
have human rights.
The fundamental human right
Can't
is
stand
the
her either.
right to
She's
not
rather
be killed.
insufferable.
Okay.
It's the right to be protected against the right to life. And so that's why I don't have the right to commit homicide against you, Destiny, or against you, Kristen, or against you, Brian, and certainly not against a preborn developing child.
Okay.
And but I have a question for you too, but I know we all have questions for each other, but I'll let you.
Sure, yeah, because I'm going to keep
Go,
going on this.
yeah.
I don't believe that you believe in that statement,
Oh, boy.
that humans
Okay.
have a right to life. So my next question would be, I show you a human who's been dead for 10 days. The corpse is still a human, we agree, right?
I think to clarify, a right to life meaning a right to not be killed, not a right not to be killed.
It's
Meaning,
fundamentally different, abortion and end of life care. I watched one of your debates this morning when I was on the plane
Damn. Yeah. That is kind of okay. Yeah.
coming here, and I found it interesting because you kept using this end of life an argument. You fundamentally have a right not to be killed. Abortion is an active killing. It's an active dismemberment.
Yeah,
It's
that
actually
makes
a
sense,
violent
Karsten.
ending for another human being. So morally, that act of abortion is much different than someone who maybe is brain dead, or we're not sure their brain activity that's been in a hospital for 3 months. That's a much different position to take, because you're not actively
I don't know,
killing that
insatiable.
person. You may say
France has
we have
fought
to
2
withdraw
world wars
life
on their land. I think that I think that's earned them a country status. That's to verify if there is no basic issue in being sure of the thing.
Support for this reason, or the doctor may say we have this reason to believe this person is brain dead, but you're not actively killing. You don't say, well, they're going to die, so I'm going to take a gun and put it through the person's head. We would not say that. We would say we might withdraw life support and see if the person can sustain life on his or her own, but we're not going to actively dismember them in the process or violently kill them in the process. But that's exactly what abortion is. It's not just easily withdrawing life support. It's actively going into a womb where there's a developing human being that biologist tells us is a unique, whole, living human being that's never existed before and will never exist again, and it's actively...
God damn, what a fucking platitude. Unique, whole, new... It's like, yeah, it's a person. Like, move on. It's not like, stop with the fucking plot. God damn it. Ugh.
Killing them.
Fucking gross.
Okay, I don't believe that you believe in that argument. If I were to show you that all abortions could be done by just extracting the baby and then leaving it on the table and not actively killing it, but just removing it from the mother's life support and seeing what happens, would you be okay with that?
That is actively killing
That
it.
is killing it.
Because
How is that actively killing any more than
because
pulling
children,
the plug on
Destiny,
somebody?
you know this, you're a parent. Children are dependent on their parents. A newborn is dependent on his or her parents, and a preborn child is dependent on his or her mother.
I understand. I'm just challenging the words we're using here, the difference between active and passive killing.
But the dependency of a child doesn't give their parents or anyone else the right to kill that child.
Sure, I never said as much. I was just challenging.
Well, you do say as much, I think, because I think your position is if that dependent child before the arbitrary line of 20 to 24 weeks is in any way unwanted, inconvenient, just for whatever reason abortion is chosen for that child, then you are okay with a parent killing their child.
Depends on what video games the child plays. No, the only thing I'm trying to figure out right now is
But are you okay with that? Because I think that was what you said earlier.
I don't know what. So right now I'm just trying to figure out what your position is. So
well, we're trying to figure out your position too. So
I already get my position with crystal clear.
But it actually
it's a
wasn't
little
very
unclear.
clear. That wasn't actually clear, Destiny, because when
Okay, wait, hold on, wait, just because, hold on, just because I got cut off like 7 times and I haven't responded. So just to be very clear, to give you an idea of like what I'm trying to establish right now, when I have conversations with people that are pro-life, there's a lot of dancing between words that I think deserve distinct definitions. Human, I think, is distinctly different from person. I think it's distinctly different from life. I think it's just...
Okay, so this is going to be really important. I'm glad, Destiny's I cannot fault or really, I don't find a lot of faults with a lot of his debates from what I've seen, and I haven't seen that much. The dude is very good, and I like the way he's framing this because, like, the issue that a lot of people have, I think, with these sorts of like political actor type folks is they like to play around with language a lot, and they like to shift their terminology. They'll say human in one sentence, person in the next sentence. They'll constantly shift this to try to create like synonyms between words that aren't necessarily synonyms, words that describe different, unique, different phenomena. But like, if you can tie them to the same thing, if you can tie person to human, it's kind of a way that you can continually smuggle and use the same, you can launder your points a little bit better. And it's good that Destiny's trying to hammer them down and stick them to one definition for each word. Since that's going to be kind of, it seems like pretty key to his argument against why, like, a human life and a, like, being a person and personhood are different things. A heartbeat is different from a conscious being, kind of in the same way of like, if somebody's like a vegetable, there's a reason why we kind of have that term, right? Like if somebody's brain dead, we call them a vegetable. It's not because they're not a human, but they're not really a person, because personhood is, what you experiencing, communicating in like, experiencing things, and vegetables can't do those things. They can be vegetables the same way a human can be a human, but a vegetable can't be a person. Unless they're Larry the cucumber or the Bob the tomato, maybe they can, but like otherwise, no.
Distinctly
Stop.
different from a child. But all of these things, when we're talking pro-life, tend to just get thrown together. Like, oh, well, we should defend all human people, and children are worthy of life. And a lot of these statements are almost begging the question. Obviously, anything that you would consider a child deserves rights to life, right? But that's what's
pro-lifers believe human beings are persons.
Yeah.
What you're arguing is that some human beings don't deserve personhood rights.
But what I'm trying
which
to do,
throughout history, Destiny, has always proved to be a very dangerous position that you're taking.
Yeah, I understand the analogies of slavery we're trying to draw here, but what I'm just trying to figure out is because
Can you respond to that? Because I think let's just take it one step at a time because
I
that might.
think fundamentally there's a difference between saying a fetus hasn't developed the cognitive parts yet to recognize it as living versus saying black people and white people are
Okay, well
different types of things.
let's address consciousness for a minute because my understanding is you're saying.
Okay, if you want, hold on, real quick.
Okay.
If
Just
you
a
want, we can
minute.
leave to my position if you want. I still have no idea what you guys believe, but we can leave for mine if you want.
Well,
You can
then
go
I'll
first.
just
very
say it
clear. I
again.
mean, we
Any
can
till
say
you-
it slower for you.
Yeah.
What I heard you say is that like children should have rights and shouldn't be killed, which I think we all agree.
Any human life
Uh-huh.
has the right to not be killed.
Yeah.
Any
Well, yeah,
human
but
life
then
has
you
the right
also
to not
try
be
to draw,
killed.
when you said not be killed, you try to draw a distinction between like active and passively killing.
No, you
She
cannot.
did. She did.
We're talking
You
about-
Because she said there was a difference between pulling the plug on grandpa versus actively killing
the intentional
a fetus.
destruction of an
Yeah.
innocent human life is
Sure,
is
but
what
I was
we
saying that like
oppose.
unplugging grandpa would be kind of like unplugging a baby. You're disconnecting both from a life support thing.
No, because a baby belongs, a preborn baby belongs before development of
He or
and able
she's
to
right
be
where
born
she's supposed to
belongs
be.
in his or her mother's womb.
Sure, I understand, but
So
that means
it's
there's
a
probably
natural,
ways
it's a
to.
natural habitat.
Sure, that's a fundamentally different thing. There's probably ways to passively kill children that we would agree is also wrong. Just because you're actively versus passively doing something,
Well,
that's
it's
not
about.
going to be.
I think intention matters too.
Yeah.
Sure, it
So,
absolutely can be.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But that's important to qualify. We can't just say like passively
Sure.
killing somebody is fundamentally different from actively killing somebody. Therefore, one is ascribed like moral weight and the other.
I do kind of wish there is a guy here. He's off screen, but he's in the middle. I don't know why he's not like, at the very least, like kind of stopping people from interrupting as much. But I guess this might be a podcast where they're let off the chain a little bit.
Isn't because there's if you starve a
Well,
child to
I
death,
think
that's
there's-
passive, but that's
We have
also
to
I
set
think
a
there's a
line where
few
we
other things
choose
you have to
hire
get into
something
what
as
you
an
mean by
entity
passive or
observing more
active.
Sure, I agree. That's what I'm
consideration
trying to get into.
of
But
this
you
is
can ask me
a
questions if you want. I'll just
Okay,
pause
I
it.
do have a
Yeah, go
question
ahead.
about consciousness
Yeah, go for
because
it.
my understanding is that's your big line. That if there's suddenly consciousness, then they are a person. They're not just a human, but they're also a person. And first, to clarify, you think it's okay for some humans to be the victims of homicide? You think it's
Okay, Smaggle. So, I certainly agree that there's so any line that we draw is going to be arbitrary. Everyone needs to understand that in terms of abortion, when we draw a line in terms of what is and what isn't a legal abortion, that is going to be an arbitrary line that we have chosen based on whatever criteria we pick. Now, the question of like, what criteria do we use is basically what this entire debate is going to be about. These two believe that the mere existence of a fetus, of enough clump of a cells to create some little dolphin looking thing is enough of an argument of like, nope. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're also pro more of like, life begins at conception folks, right? Now that's an arbitrary line that they've picked. That's the one that they enjoy. The one that I support is generally the one we had under Roe v. Wade. I believe it was like 20 to 24 weeks. That's when that's when our understanding of fetal development says that there begins to be, unique experiences, all the rest of that sort of stuff. Up until that point, it's mostly kind of up in the air as to if that fetus, if that developing child, if it was extracted from the mother, would continue on. There's no guarantee that it will. There's no guarantee that it won't. So the question, at least for me, is always like, all right, if we're going to draw this arbitrary line, how do we draw it to benefit the most amount of people? To me, we already had that. We already had a system in place. We already had a pretty, I think, fair standard that like after a point, abortion wasn't an option. Before a point, it is an option. And it needs to be open as an option for people in a certain like threshold of or a time period so that they can make proper decisions. Because if you get pregnant due to rape, carve outs for rape and incest exceptions, as a good example, are, what's the word I'm looking for? Insufficient, for the simple fact that if you are raped by a person and then want to proceed with an abortion, that doctor, if there are rape exceptions, that doctor's going to look at you and go, if I do this and there isn't a legal conviction, I could lose my license or I could go to jail, meaning you won't have access to that abortion until the legal system is done with your rape case, which could take much longer than the amount of time than it would take for the baby to gestate and eventually be born, meaning we would leave mothers with an inability to make a decision on that exception in the amount of time that's necessary for there to be a real world impact. So rape and incest exceptions to me are not they're bullshit. They're fairy dust. They're nothing. They don't mean anything. They're inactionable. You're not able to get through the legal system quick enough, or at least not reliably quick enough, unfortunately. And the reason why people defended Roe v. Wade and the reason why the repeal of Roe v. Wade was such a disaster in a lot of people's minds is we took a standard that we already kind of had and already was pretty much working for everybody for the most part. You know, if you didn't want to get an abortion, you weren't forced to. If you did, you had a window in which you could get that. But like, these people want to go to a world where people have less options in more desperate positions. Unfortunately, it's just, to me, it's just so much less like it's less about healthcare, and it's more about just these two's personal politics. What is good for the mother isn't always what these two are going to like, but it's not their body and it's not their healthcare. I don't think they should have a say in that.
It's okay to commit homicide against a human, just not a person.
I mean, I would take issue with homicide because that's a really loaded term, but I would say that you can end the life of human beings that no longer have the capacity to deploy consciousness. And
So
we
if
do
I'm
that.
asleep
Let me
and I'm
finish real quick.
unconscious, it's okay to kill me?
That's why I said capacity to deploy consciousness. I can wake you up when you're sleeping.
Like the fetus
Okay.
has capacity.
No, a
The
fetus that
fetus-
doesn't have the necessary brain parts has no
Destiny,
capacity for consciousness.
If you give that child time, that child
Give the
innately
child time
has
implies-
capacity.
Wait, you said 20 to 24 weeks. What about children?
Hold on.
Who
Wait,
have
wait.
have REM
Just you
cycle
saying,
sleep
hold on.
at
Wait,
18
wait.
weeks.
Just what you said there. Give the child time implies that it's
Give
not
me time
there
to
yet.
wake up.
Do you think that a seed and a tree are the same thing?
You're making a wrong equivalency.
I'm
here.
not making a wrong
No,
equivalency.
you are,
I'm saying that a
Destiny.
seed
Because
given enough
listen,
time, a seed given enough
Destiny.
time will grow into a tree. But when you use the word, this thing will become this thing. The implication there is your intuition pumping all the rights that this thing has by saying this will become
Incorrect. Incorrect. A child in the womb, a human being, has
Yeah.
the capacity for consciousness.
No, it
They
doesn't.
might not have developed that
So-
capacity.
That means they don't
yet.
have the
They
capacity
might not
for
have
it.
developed that
Just
capacity yet.
one microphone at a time, please.
yeah,
Just let
okay.
everyone
Oh,
finish.
They might
now
not
he
have
jumps in.
developed the capacity yet. Similarly, if someone is in a coma or unconscious, they're not actively, that capacity is not activated yet. But if you don't interrupt the life of that child, if you don't
right.
kill that child will absolutely be conscious and just
My head
develop
itches.
consciousness in just a few weeks.
And that's the difference between the
So-
question you were asking me earlier when you tried to trip me up about the
I'm
end
not trying
of
to
life.
trip. You guys are the ones trying to trip me up.
No,
I'm trying to
we're
take those
trying
figure
to
what you're.
clarify. You have a very murky position because you said between 20 to 24 weeks. I believe
That
the
is a
child
window.
raised. Which one is it? If you're the one making the laws,
Sure,
and who
I
gives
have
you
a-
the
All right, let's also talk about this. Do you remember when I said how in terms of like the way we write laws from a racial perspective, they're very opaque? The same goes for abortion laws. In terms of racial laws, it's actually a detriment because it allows for space. It allows space for, again, I mentioned Jim Crow laws in the example. It allows space for people to kind of play around with language, be vague, be unspecific, to write people out of the franchisement of their rights. That's how Jim Crow laws work. That is a bad consequence of having kind of opaque laws. But on the other hand, opaque laws aren't always bad. Another, like in terms of abortion, as an example, also kind of opaque. And we leave that opaque because we leave the decision up to doctors and their patients, whatever might be useful or I guess most pragmatic for them. Some people, they might need to get an abortion early because they have some, I don't know, developmental issue with the fetus. And, you know, that parent isn't either A, equipped, or B, does not want to put the child through a difficult life if they have like, you know, some kind of awful deformity. And I think that should be left up to the doctors and the parents and the families to make that decision. I don't think that's Kristen Hawkins' place to decide for other people. And I don't think that's the state's right to be meddling in other people's family creation. So like the opaqueness of like the Roe v. Wade decision helped in giving that space to doctors and everybody make that decision for themselves. Because once you erect strong, like I said this earlier, once you erect strong barriers, hard barriers, you're going to see a reduction in healthcare. You're like people just simply don't want to get in trouble for performing an abortion that could be the right thing to do, but we don't know yet.
right to make those
Crystal clear
laws?
position. My position is the thing we ought to defend is the conscious experience, because that's the thing we look
When
to.
does that conscious experience begin?
About
here?
20 to 24 weeks.
You don't
Well,
have
that's
any-
a big time period because there's been children who've been born at 21 weeks and 5 days.
Oh, no, not
so
MAGA
were those children when they were
communism.
born prematurely? So I had an intern a few years ago who was one of the youngest children
Nice
ever
to
to
see Washington.
survive.
Okay.
At that age, she was 21 weeks and 6 days.
Oh my
old.
God, so
Okay.
much.
So she's
so much
right in between
Vache.
your 20 to 24 week
People
time
are
range.
very,
Okay.
So when
very
she and her twin sister
have very
were
strong
born,
opinions on
do
Vache.
you believe that the hospital, the NICU, did something wrong and giving out care and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in care to sustain her and her sister's life?
Why would I think something wrong was done there?
Well, because
Well, you
that's-
don't think it's a human with consciousness necessarily.
Yeah,
So
you're
you're
I don't
not
think
sure.
a
Your
2-week
argument's
old
fine
is
to
a
kill
human
them.
with consciousness, but that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with supporting it.
But you're saying it's okay to kill it.
So you're saying my
Kill him or
vagina is
her.
magical. So something happened.
No, first of all, as a
and-
child born by
A rerun, sir. I'm syndicated. I'm not a rerun. Also, what does that even mean? Here's what people are thinking about today's decision. I already covered that. Maybe you should have been here a couple hours ago when I covered that story already.
C-section, I'm very offended. Okay,
But
we're
I mean,
humans too.
that's the
Number one,
position you're
no,
taking.
hold on.
Jesus.
Is it
Hold on.
something-
Wait,
something magical
hold on.
happens
Wait.
during birth?
The vagina magic.
Supreme Court ruled on affirmative action, which I spent like an hour. I spent over an hour on. So don't you tell me 007 Goofy that we aren't covering things on Supreme Court decisions today.
guy is not in the room right now. I
Well,
didn't
you
give any
were
qualification
talking
about birth being the magical time that made
know,
somebody
you are
human. I've
welcome
never
to go
said
hear my
that ever.
arguments
I have
on
no
that
idea what position you're
earlier in
attacking
the stream.
there. To back up, very
I'm
You should have
attacking your
been here.
position that's
You
not
should
clear,
follow.
because you
That's
said
what
20
you
to
should do.
24 weeks,
Should
and I'm
follow.
asking
Then
you
you
a
won't
very
miss when I
direct
talk
question
about stuff.
Yeah.
about child born at
Just
Your
21
question
Just
was
a
if a
suggestion.
child
and
is
6
prematurely born
days.
at 16 weeks, the mother and the father have every right to try to find support for that child. Why would you not?
But why? What makes that
Why?
child
Because it's going to grow
worthy
into their kid. Why would they not?
of care?
But you're saying it's okay to kill the kid at 16 weeks.
Sure.
And I think that's the difference between this side of the table and that side of the table.
Well,
That side of the
obviously,
table is
that's because
okay.
I'm pro-choice and you guys are
right, but you're
or
pro, as you
pro-abortion
said,
and you're anti-abortion.
pro-abortion. Yeah.
Have you ever considered
Destiny,
that you could
be
be wrong
more
on this
quiet.
issue?
Yeah, of course.
What,
Have you?
What? Absolutely.
Hold on. Only one, to be clear, only one
Absolutely
side of the
I
table
consider
here is tied to organizations that are getting money invested in them. So
Well,
if
we
any
start-
side here was
I
gonna-
started my
I
argument.
understand,
that's
but
fair.
you're never changing your position. I'm still free to change mine. So in terms of asking me if I consider
That's
I'm
fine.
wrong,
That's
I can
incredibly
consider
true.
that I'm wrong. You guys will never change your opinion on this. but
I've,
go
I've,
ahead.
I've considered it. I've had
Okay.
to consider a lot of
Sure.
times. But what would it mean if
Has
you were
she?
wrong on your position on abortion?
What would it mean
morally,
if
what
I
would it
was
mean?
wrong?
So
Well, okay, like let's we watched that really short clip, but like let's address that a little bit. If Destiny is wrong, and if I'm wrong, if my position is, which is pretty much virtually the same one as his, that there's a threshold in which we cut off access to abortion because unless there's like, something extreme going on, then what's the harm? What's the tangible harm that's been created in society? And any of you, and I see some of you are a little bit more on the pro-life side. That's I'm kind of interested in your answer to that. What is the tangible, like, real life harm if, like, we have a threshold where you can get an abortion for a length of time and then you can't unless an extreme circumstance past a certain point? Like, I'm in a veil? Well, you're also French, so... Okay, and you guys chime in while I go get a refill on water, because goddamn I'm thirsty. Respect that. Okay, with killing babies. I will address that. And at least have respect when you own that you are okay. Okay, let's see. I can at least have respect when you own that you are okay with killing babies. We used to have human sacrifice in religions. We did. We used to, like, rip people's fucking hearts out at the top of tombs. Or, like, fucking pyramids. It's pretty badass. It's all a morality debate anyway. Okay, so. If you would like. So, here's my only pushback on that. I still don't really see the, like, what's the harm? Like, I get it. The whole, like, you think. And you can tell me if I'm wrong. You think that it is a baby at conception, which is fine. If that's what you believe, I have no problem with that. But I need to know what the antithesis is, what the great harm to society is when not everybody has that same conception. Because we've had Roe v. Wade since what? I think the mid 70s. I could be wrong. I don't remember when Roe v. Wade was decided, but I believe it was somewhere in the 70s. But like, what's the oh, this thing about society has gotten worse because of abortion and because of freer access to it. Not 100% free, but freer access to it. I do not like these pro or anti-abortion debates, nor do I really discuss them or talk about them at all. Even maybe I should start learning and taking some kind of idea, but I mainly go on economic and political issues. I do not like discussing id poll as well, but I do think some cases it's pretty important. I'm not a big fan of identity politics. What one has to recognize, I think, a lot of times is the usefulness of intersectionality, because the only time I find identity politics, I suppose, useful is in an analysis of like class issues and how those intersect with like race, especially in the United States. We in the United States have a really, really like unique issue when it comes to how diverse we are and how segregated our racial makeup is along class lines. There's a deep like history of that, and understanding how those two kind of fit together is, I think, really important and valuable. Public health issues, I don't know. Yeah, and public health is important. The harm is the termination of a living being. Maybe that termination holds low value because it doesn't have conscious experience. Maybe it doesn't have preferences. So maybe the harm is minimal, but the harm is not non-existent. It is still terminating a life. That's all the harm. Okay, so I think that's an honest analysis of it. And I do think like when people go through abortions, it's not traumatizing. It's like it's a traumatizing process. It's not fun. If you've ever spoken to somebody, and if you've spoken to somebody who's had a child before, I almost guarantee you there's a good chance they'd had an abortion before that. I think the highest like rate of people who have children are also people who have had abortions previously. It's just things kind of happen in abortion. Not every abortion is as simple as, the sperm goes up into the thing and then the thing and then and you get fat and then it comes out. Like there's a lot that goes into it. And like it's a process that I think every individual is going to have their own like story, their own experience with. And the problem with passing these laws is it's a one size fit all medical track for pretty much everybody, but not everybody has a one track like medical diagnosis, or I guess a medical what's the word, like process for this sort of thing. Like it's just not like we can agree that like is it a living being? I suppose I would disagree, because I don't think a living being really counts as something that is 100% dependent on another being for its existence. But even then that's like kind of a bit of a gray area. And also the consciousness part is kind of something that to me also kind of disqualifies fetuses from what I would count as personhood. But like we can agree that there's harm, but the harm is external. The harm is to the mother. The harm is to the relationship of the two people who were maybe trying to have kids, or maybe, want kids in the future, but have to reject this one because they're just not in a position to take care of it yet. That's really difficult and hard on the relationship. Same with rape, same with incest, same with any of these other situations. And we need to have laws that are like, I think, like loose and fluid enough to fit those needs. And unfortunately, these people don't want that. And that's where my opposition comes. Still life at conception. And the question is when or if you should be able to end that life. I just feel it's disingenuous. One, if you're arguing when life occurs, then you agree that life is important and murder is wrong. Well, we already agree on that, obviously. Two, if you can admit it's the life, but then want to debate when life has value, then we can have an honest debate. Well, it's not about value, I think. I don't really know if it's value that I would turn to it. I think it would be, let me think about this. Would it be I don't know if value is the word I would put to it, because it's not always the problem with like abortion and with what's the word I'm looking for? The problem with like abortion and the debate around it is like, I think there's like this this idea of like you mentioned value, right? And I don't think it's like a value thing, because a lot of people don't have kids because kids are valuable. I don't think that's why people have children. People have children for any number of reasons. Sometimes it's because they want kids, because they do see a value in it. They do see a positive value in them. Sometimes people just have kids because they don't have it, like they just got pregnant. They just got pregnant. That was it. It was never a choice. And like the harm of not allowing people who didn't make that decision to get pregnant, I don't think is helpful to society. What you're gonna see is a lot more people go through a harder life because now they're taking care of a child that they weren't prepared for, didn't initially want, and not only that, incurring forcing medical payments onto them also isn't something that I think the government should be involved in or have the ability to force you to do necessarily, just arbitrarily, I suppose. 15 minutes left, then we want to debate the device of value. Then we can. Okay, let's see. I believe that there should be an integration of IDPOL into classism because there is needed mutual movement. I believe that the class dictates our human society and has done so since slave society. So IDPOL should not be put at the expense of class. Absolutely not. They work hand in hand, but I do think class will always outlive, or at least I like to believe that class will outlive race. When we finally get over racism, we will, I think, embrace a lot more classism and an understanding of class struggles. But united in their movement of liberation to oppress class. Fucking base. Call her as. That's what said Vale in her speech. The great value. If you're not vegan, you hold some life above others. Yeah. I'm definitely not a vegan, so I suppose that is true. Expensive too. Yeah, fuck yeah, it is. It is value. Does the mother or baby have more worth? Does society or the baby have more value? Well, if you want to make a mother or baby having more worth argument, then it would be the mother, because the mother can create more life. Baby cannot. Not only that, but we're not talking about a baby. We are still talking about a fetus. If you want to start from clump of cells and like fetal development, you have to argue all the way back from that point, which I don't think societally fetuses contribute equally to adult women. 49% of the time are about value. People throw out life of the mother, but even that is a value judgment. Yeah, it is. I side more with the mother. There'll be a destruction of the social constructs of gender, race, etc. God, I hope so. Sadly, I don't think the destruction of those structures will be in my time, but I do my part to see to the end of it. Anyway, let's continue.
I don't know if you believe in God.
At
heaven, or whatever.
insatiable
Well, I haven't aborted any kids yet,
expense.
But
so
say
to my knowledge.
say you get hit by a bus and you go to heaven, and God's like,
Jesus
Destiny,
Christ.
You've been completely wrong on abortion your entire life. You've advocated for abortions between 20 and 24 weeks. No one can really tell because you wouldn't give us a definitive time.
Hold on.
Goofy, what is life? Give me a definition of life, then.
You're
like,
hold on, wait.
can you
I gotta address this real quick.
Like,
I gotta,
what would
wait,
that
wait,
mean if you were wrong on
okay,
abortion?
hold on. For you saying that just because I can't nail an exact solid time when
That's kind of a big deal.
It's not really that big of a
It
deal.
is a big deal.
It's a
'cause
big deal when you're
There's a
making
line
laws.
between
It's
there's a
super
line
not a big
between
deal.
homicide
You could
and
literally
then it
just
being
say
totally
like,
okay.
hey, before 20 weeks, abortion is okay, and then draw the cutoff right there if you want. That's a question for policymakers.
But why do policymakers? Why does anyone get to
Why do a
decide
bunch of
whether or
men
not
get to
an
decide that?
innocent person lives or dies?
Wait, you fucking idiot. That's what you're arguing. Wait. This idiot on the fucking left doesn't understand that what she's arguing is for for lawmakers to be involved and to decide these thresholds. That is the reality. Like, the argument isn't, we don't make these arguments. These people are so stupid. We don't have these arguments because we just like talking about this stuff. While I like talking about it and debating it, That's not why I talk about and debate any of it. I talk about and debate all of it so that I can propagate my opinions and get people to kind of move over more to my position, or at the very least come to an understanding of my position. And maybe one day they move over to mine. But the main goal is to garner support for a much more vague understanding, or at the very least vague interpretation of when fetuses are, ineligible for abortion, because I think it should be kind of a bit vague, because not all pregnancies play out the exact same. Destiny said 20 weeks, but a doctor could do your little ultrasound thingamajig, whatever the fuck, at 20 weeks and go, actually, that's not developed up to this point. Your baby is maybe premature, maybe is gestating a little bit slower. Like the gestation of like children, of like the next living being that's in your like womb, is not a hard science. Like it is, in the sense of like we have like we have like averages, and that's how you write policy, but you still need to leave room in those averages so that people can fall out of those cracks when they need to. Like that's kind of what you need it for.
Because that's what policymakers do.
No, they don't have the right to kill an innocent person. If any policymaker tries to kill an innocent person,
that's about
that's
healthcare
murder.
and triage and who gets medical treatment first, or if you're making decisions about
Destiny,
saving
can't
people
you
from...
admit there's a- okay,
hold on,
can't-
wait, okay.
I still wanna
Wait, just be clear. I'm going to
I
start kind of
still
go...
need to know-
Okay. Goofy, thank you for that. Now, can you tell me how a fetus is, power of adaptation and environment through changes originating internally? Like, how does that, okay, so how does that apply to like a fetus? Like, how does the definition that you just gave me, like, apply, like, what is the, like, oh, a fetus does this, and this is how it's doing, like, life. This is how it's performing life.
Have you ever
I know,
considered
but I don't have a
that?
chance to answer any question, and you're like loading so many horribly like intuition pump question bags in front of me that I don't have time to answer all of the horrible questions in front of me. Okay?
I
So
just
like,
wanna know
wait, no, I'm gonna
considered
keep talking.
wrong.
We're gonna do one at a time. I will answer a question, but you can't keep stacking like dumb questions in front of me, and they'll be like, oh, see, like you want to murder children, okay?
I don't
If
know
you wanna-
about
if
dumb-
I can-
they
if you want me to
weren't
answer,
dumb
hold on.
questions.
So let me address the very first thing, because you keep trying to draw like there's some like thing here that you've caught me on. The idea that I can't give you a concrete time between 20 to 24 weeks. Okay?
Yeah.
I hate to be the guy that does this in a debate.
Well, I'm
but there's
really just
something called
asking
a
because,
continuum
like-
fallacy or a nirvana fallacy. The idea that
Because like Destiny, like, I notice people like to use words kind of loosely. So that's why I asked that question. And in terms of like, is it used to dehumanize? Not really. Although there is an element to that. I can certainly agree there's an element to that. That me saying fetus distinguishes a fetus from a baby, because I do think that those are distinctly different things. An infant, a newborn, to me is wildly different from a fetus. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's not really dehumanization. It's a distinction that I'm drawing.
just because I can't point exactly at when something begins, that I have to say that all of it is the same, or I can't point to that thing existing at all. I can't tell you when individual pieces of sand are stacked up and eventually become a pile of sand. I can't give you the exact numbers of sand that
Also, the question, also keep in mind, Goofy, the question is not at what point do we begin? So, like, what I care about is legislation. I care about the structures that we build around the way that we perform our lives, right? If a person, like any mother, values their child at like 1 week of gestation. Sorry. I had a burp, but I held it in for you. But like any mother, like whether the baby is 28 weeks, I don't know how many, 40 weeks, 28 weeks. I don't know how long it takes for week wise. I just know it's 9 months. Whether it's 28 weeks, whether it's 20 weeks, whether it's 16 weeks, whether it's 10 weeks, whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's 1 week, a mother who wants that child, who like wanted to get pregnant, that child has value the second they're done. Like the second their husband, I worked with I worked with like an old coworker of mine. She was trying to get pregnant with her second kid while I was like during the time that I worked with them. And like she would tell us like stories about how hard they would try and all the ridiculous nonsense that she would do because she read some article on the internet about like, do this after your husband fucking comes inside you and it'll like increase the fucking do a handstand right after he's done busting a nut in you, and that'll like, get the sperm going. That'll like, the gravity will like fucking Mario Kart boost them all the way through the fallopian tubes and all the rest of that shit. Like, people value like kids at like even before conception for a lot of people. So like, I don't think it's a when we value, because you and me and everybody else is going to value that existence at a different time. There are people who go through like pregnancies, have their kids, and like they don't feel like this connection. I forget what the term is. It's like a medical term. It's like a mental thing where like the baby's born and they feel this weird disconnect. And like, even though they shouldn't, like they want to feel more connected, but they don't. And it's mainly because they haven't imprinted on them postpartum. Thank you. But yeah, and there's like that sort of thing. So like the way people value like their pregnancy process and like the fetus and then, the infant and all the rest of that stuff really isn't like this straight line. It's this like wave. Like, how many women like in the middle of their pregnancies are like, fuck this. Why did I do this to myself? Why did I agree to this? I feel like shit. My hips hurt. My fucking back hurts. My fucking shoulders hurt. I'm hungry all the time. I'm sweaty all the time. Like what people value is rather like fluid, I think. But like what isn't, or at least the metric in which I think we should build the structure, is mostly database. I just want something that will fit most people, and for the people who doesn't, they can kind of fall between the cracks, and that's perfectly fine too. Like that to me is kind of where I care about it, where the discussion to me is valuable, because the morality of this or that is like, it's all well and good, but I care about legislation, and I care about the actual legal ramifications, the real life consequences of this stuff. And what it has led to in a lot of states is people not having access to abortion, and because of that, going through like, they got to go to other states, or they can't go to their normal doctors, and now they've got to kind of figure out another doctor in another state, or maybe they have like a complication, but doctors need to wait until their life is threatened, because in the laws that legislators write, they write out a carve out that's like, oh, you can't do an abortion unless the life of the mother is at risk. So when women go in some of these states to get their like pregnancy checked out and there's something wrong, doctors will turn them away and say, okay, we need your life to be just a bit more in danger so that we can say legally your life was threatened, and now we can do, whatever procedure we need to do. Like, that happens, and like, and that's the harm I want to avoid. That's the overall harm I want to avoid. And the way we get that is through irresponsible legislation, in my opinion. Okay. Let me read these. Absolutely, but the biggest dehumanization term is not saying it's a life. That is fair. I don't want to say it's not a life. That is fair. If I said that, then I retract that. But I did want a definition of life, just so we were on the same page. U.S. laws, I don't understand why they set the limit to 24 weeks, as the body is really advanced for the fetus, which is almost a baby. As far as I know, I think it's 20. So before, each state had kind of their own, they had their own thresholds, with an overall, I think, federal limit of 20 to 26 weeks is what I'd always known. Destiny said 20 to 24. I've always heard 20 to 26. But the only reason why it's like that, 4 week window is mainly because, again, as I mentioned earlier, not all pregnancies progress equally or in a consistent manner. So you need that wiggle room if there's if the babies are prematurely developing, or if they're slowly maturing, whatever the other version of that, whatever the antithesis to that word is. If you just evaluate societal worth, then an adult person is way more cost efficient than newborns. On balance, and pregnant women's matter is way better. But in order to arrive at this analysis, you have to disregard the inherent value of the fetus. That's fine, but we're at the point of of the conversation, but the value of the fetus is the entire point we're arguing about. Yeah, I just don't think the value of any fetus or any pregnancy is like a straight line. I pretty much said all of that like kind of as I was thinking about it, so I think I explained that in a good way. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. I try not to use straw men. In France, under Macron's presidency, as the access to specialists is complex nowadays, they pushed for a second time limit at the origin 10. Under Chirac, it was 12, and then now 14. Interesting. Also, keep in mind, I also think in terms of France's abortion procedures also, I do think it's a bit different. It's a different context just because of the economics there, because you guys have a pretty robust healthcare system, whereas we don't. So a lot of the reasoning behind a lot of people's pregnancies, like if if I was in a position right now where me and my significant other were pregnant, we would have to get an abortion just because we can't afford to we can't afford to provide for that. And that's like, I don't want to I want to be able to provide for my kids. So for me, like, that's like that's like, from what I understand, one of the largest and one of the most like frequently referenced what's the word, justifications for seeking an abortion is just because it's so fucking expensive in this country. We do nothing to support people. If we really want to see a reduction in abortions, you need to pay people to have kids. That's what we should be doing. Habitur makes doctors scared. All the states, as far as I've seen, have a health clause. So it's not really okay. So I would look into this. Let me see if I have some links, I'll try to post them. But like, what you're gonna hear is, because you have to keep in mind, like, laws, once you write laws in very specific language, doctors, and I said this earlier with the rape case, like, if a doctor doesn't know, like, they're not a legal scholar, you come in, say you want an abortion, you got raped. Well, if that doctor gets sued by the state or some organization, some anti-abortion organization, they say, hey, that person was not raped. You performed an abortion under the lie of a rape exception. That doctor is going to get in a lot of trouble, and is going to get in a lot of trouble for not verifying that. But how's the only way you verify that? Under the legal system, under the way that we construct the laws, there has to be a legal threshold of, okay, this person is convicted of rape. We have proved within a reasonable doubt, without a reasonable doubt that this person committed this crime. You are now the doctor has 100% assurance that when he does that abortion, he has legal protection, that he is adhering to the rape and incest exception, and not operating under the assumption that it was the reporting that this person was raped, it was like honest, not just taking your patient's word at it. And I tend to think that it should be that doctors and that's how you kind of do it, right? That's you get the doctors to go, ooh, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to lose my license. I don't want to, run afoul of the law. And then you have clinics closing. There's a bunch of clinics that have to close, that had to close in a few southern states because they just can't operate under those kinds of laws. And especially if laws are just set up to incentivize that kind of legal action from organizations like the one that Kristen Stewart runs. Legal conditions set under Vale's law to help a bit to understand. If you could link those, that'd be cool. Sure, but 1, hospitals have lawyers, and 2, current thresholds are very broad. Not in every state and not consistently. Hospitals do have lawyers, but any lawyer will tell you, like, if you're a hospital lawyer, any lawyer will tell you, because they're in the business of making money, if a rape victim comes in and wants to get an abortion, and there's a law in the books that says no abortions before or after 6 weeks, because I think that's the Texas law. After 6 weeks, the only exceptions are rape, incest, or the life of the mother. That means when rape victim number 1 comes in, they want an abortion, but they got raped, a month ago or something, and like they're past the 6-week line, that lawyer is going to tell them, sorry, no room at the inn, Virgin Mary, you're on your own. And they're going to tell the doctor, no, you can't do it. You work here. We're not going to let you use our facility because the law is written in a very simple and like pretty straightforward way. Yeah, you can, Carson.
I can see. For
Let me see if I can find. Okay, let's see. Texas. Let's see if I can find Texas's specific language. Let's see. Texas abortion. I just want I want the raw law. If you're only allowed to give abortions due to rape, incest, life of the mother, then you lose out on 99% of abortions. Wait. If you only allowed to give abortions due to rape, incest, and life of the mother, then you lose out on 99%. Can you word that differently? My brain is not. I don't quite. You're allowed to give abortions due to rape, incest. Then you lose. What do you mean you lose out on 99% of abortions? I'm sorry. I just don't. Because keep in mind, you have to prove rape, you have to prove incest, and you have to prove that the life of the mother is in danger. Or at the very least, it depends on the language. Because if it's imminent threat, like the term imminent threat from a legal standpoint would be the mother is like about to die, now you can do the abortion. History of abortion laws. No, I just want, what is the, okay, let's go with this one. Okay. Texas abortion. Okay, can I just want the language. I just want exactly the language. Dobbs v. Jackson. No, okay. What is the Texas law that punishes people who perform? Oh, here it is. Yeah. There are a number of laws on the books that penalize abortion. Some are new, such as the heartbeat and trigger law, and some have been in place for some time. Here's an overview. Texas Code is commonly called the heartbeat law. This statute states that a, quote, a physician may not knowingly perform or induce an abortion on a pregnant woman unless the physician has determined, in accordance with this section, whether the woman's unborn child has a detectable fetal heartbeat. Well, yeah, because if they can't like perform services, then they can't make money. And if they can't make money, they can't pay the rent for the buildings. They can't pay for the rent for the buildings. That abortion clinic is now gone in whatever locality. It's a way of targeting their economics and pushing them out of the region. Health and safety code. All healthcare is privatized, sadly, except for the VA, I guess. Sets out a penalty for doctors who perform an abortion without providing a sonogram, having the mother listen to the heart, Jesus, and providing certain written and verbal explanations as a misdemeanor punishable by fine up to $10,000. So if you're a doctor and you want to perform an abortion, you have to prove you've done all of this, or you get a misdemeanor and $10,000. If you're a doctor, you just won't do it because you don't want to risk $10,000. Let's see. Make it state jail felony if for a person who intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly cause a drug-induced abortion, meaning if somebody does a bunch of drugs, then they also get a felony. Lovely. Jail felony to perform partial birth abortion and perform a dismemberment abortion, which are really just different forms of abortions. While they sound like awful, and they are awful experiences, they are at the end of the day healthcare. I want the plain reading, though. I just want the text of the law. ER is not free. And then other taxes. Privatization versus mutualism. Yeah, really. In France, it's not a business, but a public healthcare service. God, I wish. Can I just get text? Can I get the plain text? I just want, here it is. Prohibits abortion. Here we go. Is this it? .gov. Cool. All right. Let's take a look. Okay, subchapter. Fetal heartbeat means cardiac activity or the steady and repetitive rhythmic contraction of the fetal heart within the gestational. Okay, I thought that was a Q. Gestational sect. Okay. Gestational age means the amount of time that has elapsed from the first day of the woman's last menstrual period. Keep in mind, last menstrual period means couple weeks before somebody's what's it called? You could this is, what is it? First day of a woman's last menstrual period. So if you got off your period the first week of June and you got pregnant the, I don't know, third week of June, then the gestational age starts at the woman's last menstrual period, which means it starts before you actually got pregnant. From what if I'm reading that correctly. Gestational sac means the structure comprised. Okay, we don't need to read definition. Well, this specific stuff. Physician means, yeah, we know what a physician is. Pregnancy means human female reproductive condition that begins with fertilization, occurs da 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 da. I want, let's see, determination of presence. For the purposes of determining, except providing section, oh, for fuck's sake. Prohibiting abortion, unborn child with detectable heartbeat. Yeah, here we go. Legally cannot offer service. They can attempt to charge. Thing is made to block up to 28-ish days. Physician does not violate the section if the physician performed a test of the fetal heartbeat as required by section da 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 da. Cool. We already know that part. I want to see the okay, where's the I'm assuming it doesn't actually say 6 weeks. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that's what the gestational age means. Because that's kind of how you get to like a 6 week is the shortest it could possibly be. Notwithstanding chapter 16, private practices and remedies of notwithstanding of the law. God damn it. I hate legalese. It's so fucking hard to find anything. Any claim like okay, I don't want this. Fine. Give me something that, oh wait, what is this? Relating to abortion, including abortion after detection of unborn child's heartbeat, authorizing a private civil rights right of action. What the fuck? Texas abortion statute text. Every language, yeah, really. It's a menstrual period. It's called amenorrhea. Interesting. Didn't know that. 28 days is 4 weeks. Okay, cool. Man, I don't know. I'm not a math magician. I was at best an English major. And even this is too fucking legalese for me. What is this? Let's see, 10,000 additional live births. Lovely. Research paper published. Additional live births. Texas legislature passed the bill September of 2021, effectively ban abortion about 5 to 6 weeks after the woman's last menstrual cycle. Oh, okay, yeah. So that's not even like when the pregnancy happened. Now research from Johns Hopkins Blue Birth School estimated roughly 9,800 live births occurred. Through statistical modeling and looking back at previous live birth data from all 50 states, District of Columbia, researchers found that there have been 287,289 live births in Texas that time period 2021, and in reality, they observed at that time. Studies' findings highlight how abortion bans have real implications of birthing people, thousands of whom may have had no choice but to continue an unwanted or unsafe pregnancy to term. Let's see. This data comes 1 year after the Supreme Court. Yeah. Texas is among these states. Okay. What time is it? Oh, okay. I got to kind of finish up here. I do. But it's plus minus depending on women, etc. So I figured it was easier to say 28-ish. Makes sense. Conversation on the women's rights doesn't matter if we can't argue on how to evaluate the value of the fetus. No, I thought we already had this conversation. Didn't we already have this conversation? Inherently valuable as a human, and we're performing murder every abortion. Well, technically, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Because murder to me is, because you have to understand also, murder is kind of a very specific kind of term, considering there's a pregnancy and by last period, because it's easier than asking when or how many times you had sex. Yeah, and even that's not even like really consistent. So the wishes of the woman doesn't matter since the analysis happens after the analysis of the value of the fetus, and the evaluation of the fetus is the entire disagreement. The woman's choice doesn't matter. Oh, woman's choice does matter. She's the one who's actually setting the value, the actual value number on the fetus. I would say the family is the ones who set the value determiner. Okay, we're gonna finish this section. Technically, it's 11:12. I probably should go. Because this is a bedroom and people do need to sleep. Murder is intent. Let's keep that in mind. Murder has a very specific definition. For the purposes of determining the value of the fetus, except providing section, oh, for fuck's sake. Murder is intent. Let's keep that in mind. Murder has a very specific definition.
for that to be. But there is a difference between an individual piece of sand and a pile of
It's a
sand.
false equivalency,
Hold-
Destiny.
wait,
It
it's-
is.
Hold on.
It is.
Hold on.
That's-
This is
If you're
basic
gonna-
argumentation.
Because the reality is, you are saying
Well, actually, no. I actually kind of like that analogy because the idea that like a piece of like sand on the beach is different from like a sandcastle is those are two distinctly different things.
Exact solid time when
That's kind of a big deal.
It's not really that big of a
it
deal.
is a big deal.
It's a
'cause
big deal when you're
there's a
making
line
laws.
between
It's
there's a
super
line
not a big
between
deal.
homicide
You could
and
literally
then it
just
being
say
totally
like,
okay.
hey, before
Wait,
20
Goofy,
weeks,
but that means
abortion
we're
is okay, and
every
then throw
time
the
we
cutoff
chop
right
a tree
there.
down, we're murdering.
That's a question
Should
for
somebody be
policymakers.
convicted of
But,
murder
but,
for
why
murdering?
do
a life?
policymakers, why does anyone get to
Why do a
decide
bunch of
whether or
men
not
get to
an
decide that?
innocent person lives or dies?
Because that's what policymakers do.
No, they don't have the right to
They
kill
don't.
an innocent person. If any
What do you,
policymaker tries
if
to
you're
kill an
making
innocent person,
decisions about
that's
healthcare
murder.
and triage and who
There's
gets
a-
medical treatment first, or if you're making decisions about
Destiny,
saving
can't
people
you admit
from
there's a- okay,
hold on,
can't-
wait, okay.
I
I'm
still
gonna,
wanna know-
just be clear. I'm gonna
I
start
still
cutting people.
need to know if you've ever
I
considered
know, but I don't
the
have a chance to answer any question, and you're like loading so many horribly like intuition pump question banks in front of me that I don't have time to answer all of the horrible questions in front of me. Okay,
I
so
just
let's
wanna know if you've
wait, no, I'm gonna
considered
keep
the
talking.
law.
We're gonna do one at a time. I will.
Well, no, I'm arguing that mothers, well, not mothers technically. It would be family members. I think the people involved, I would say families and like practitioners would be the people who are what's the word I'm looking for? Are calculating the value of a pregnancy. What I'm concerned with is the state. I don't think the state should be making that decision for people. That's my argument. Every individual person will have a different value calculation for their pregnancy. Everybody. How many people how many people's like mothers value their daughters' pregnancies more than their daughters' pregnancies? Because their daughters are getting fat and sweaty and don't like the process. But their mothers love it because they're getting a grandkid, right? Like the value here is not static. It's incredibly fluid.
Answer a question, but you can't keep stacking like dumb questions in front of me, and they'll be like, "Oh, see, like you want to
Before
murder
20
children."
weeks,
Okay?
is
it
I don't know.
okay?
If I can- if you
How
want to
long
answer-
is this
hold on.
segment?
So let me address the very first thing because you keep trying to draw like there's some like thing here that you've caught me on. The idea that I can't give you a concrete time between 20 to 24 weeks. Okay,
Yeah.
I hate to be the guy that does this in a debate, but there's something called a continuum fallacy or a nirvana fallacy. The idea that just because I
It's
can't
like 3
point
minutes, okay.
exactly at when something begins, that I have to say that all of it is the same, or I can't point to that thing existing at all. I can't tell you when
you're
individual
done-
pieces of sand are
but if
stacked
you're
up and
more
eventually
with the
become a
chopped
pile of
trees down,
sand.
then
I
yes,
can't give you
yeah.
the exact numbers of sand that I
Murdering
conceive for
trees.
that to
But-
be, but there is a
but
difference
again-
between an individual piece of sand and
Whether I think that we're murdering trees doesn't track with the idea that I think people should be prosecuted under murder if they chop down a tree. Like I don't think that holds murder in the way that our legal system holds murder.
and a
I
pile
don't
It's a
like
false
when people chop
equivalency.
down trees because I like
It
trees
is.
for
Hold on,
the
it
most
is.
part, I guess.
Hold on.
That is
But it's not the same thing as like
because the
I wouldn't
reality is
convict
you are
somebody
saying
of
that
murder,
These are persons,
like murdering a
and these
person,
aren't
as I would
based on a
murdering a
specific
tree.
characteristic that you've
Just because they're
you've
both life,
decided on. You
they're
came up with
not
it.
of the
It's
same
not human
value.
rights
I
anymore.
didn't-
It's consciousness rights.
Yes.
You believe
because
in not
that,
human
no.
rights.
To
You're
be clear,
not you're not in support of
nobody
human
here
rights.
at this table,
You're in
you
support
either
of consciousness
hold
rights.
on. Why don't you defend?
So
wait,
you
wait.
need
Why
to
don't?
defend your position, and you're not doing that. You're kind of
Yeah.
blowing smoke a little bit, to be honest.
Why don't
And
you
so
give the same rights to
let's-
die? Why don't you give the same
let's-
rights to human corpses as you do to living
because they're
humans?
dead. They
Okay,
can't, they
what
don't.
is-
To your be specific line, Goofy, you're not gonna get a concrete answer from me because it's not going to be the same for everybody. For some people, it's the wife. For some people, it's the girlfriend. For some people, it's the boyfriend. For some people, it's the husband. For some people, it's the previous kid they had. For some people, it's the grandparents. For some people, it's their parents. For some people, it's their aunts, their uncles, their nieces, their nephews. Like everybody who's close to this, everybody who's in the family, most likely is going to have some value calculation of this. But it's not going to be like everybody has the same calculation. Each person is going to value more or less depending on their own personal. Some people don't think their siblings should have kids. Like, and for that reason, they're like, I don't really care that much or whatever.
They're
What
already
does that
dead.
mean when you say they're dead?
So they're already dead.
What does dead mean to you?
I
Their
mean,
body's
there's
no longer working in a coordinated fashion anymore. Their heart isn't pumping blood. Their
Okay.
brain is not.
If I put a
producing
person,
brain
if I put a
waves.
person on a table,
I'm only
and I
saying
can
that the
keep them alive
only
with
thing
machines
that the family is
indefinitely,
going
but
to
they're
be
never gonna
who
wake
is
up. Is that a human
making
life?
a value calculation.
There's a difference between withholding extraordinary.
Just to be
medical
clear, I'm about
care.
to ask that same question after you, whatever you're about to say, because you're
No,
not
this is
answering my
important
question.
because
Okay, go ahead.
it's a bit of obfuscation the direction you're going
It's
here because
absolutely
there's
not.
a difference between
How early?
withholding extraordinary medical care, which
Pretty
would be
much up
like life support,
until
and withholding ordinary medical care. So if I
Up until 20 to 26 weeks, I believe that's the medical consensus. I don't 100% know, but I do know it's somewhere in the realm of 20 to 26 weeks, determined by a doctor, depending on, gestational, I guess, whatever a practitioner, whoever you're going to. To me, it's not the government should set a line, but I do think if we're going to set a line, which is going to be arbitrary anyway, it's probably anywhere between 20 to 26. And I like having an opaque, like, cutoff basically to allow for, what's the word? I've said it a couple times now. The premature, like premature births, kids who like develop like quicker for whatever reason, or even fetuses that gestate at a slower rate. Like I want that like opaque period to be like somebody goes in their doctor, they go in at maybe 9 weeks. Okay, they find out they're pregnant. Can they get an abortion? Yes. They go in at 16 weeks. Can they get an abortion still? Yes, if they still want to. They go to 20, and that's when, yes, they can, but that's when we have a little bit more information. And if a doctor says, actually, your pregnancy is is far along at this certain point, and we've reached kind of a gestational point that isn't, maybe you're like a couple days or maybe a week ahead of where we thought you'd be, maybe because, you had sex, 2 weeks in a row, and we thought it was this week, and it was actually that other week that you initially got pregnant. So you're actually up a week or whatever. But I want something that's a little more like vague around the cutoff period, because like a hard cutoff isn't suitable for humans that don't have hard cutoffs for these things. It's medical care is a bit needs to be malleable, I think, and the laws should reflect that malleability. And I also think it should be up to families and doctors to kind of pick where they kind of stand in that region. After 26 weeks, generally on average, we don't see like crazy variances in gestation. So I think at that point there'd be a cutoff. There is a cutoff. I just don't think it's a hard line. I don't think there's a hard line for cutoffs that the government should be setting. Hopefully that answers your question. Said that we have to have a legal line. So how do we legally put down who gets to choose value if it keeps changing? Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's gonna keep changing because people keep changing their mind. That's just kind of, it's going to change because people change their mind, and I think we should allow people the space to change their mind and do whatever. What's the word I'm looking for? And do whatever kind of fits them most. If it's an economic thing, then the economics will influence that. If it's a family planning thing, the family planning will do that. But I think people are capable of making that decision for themselves. I don't think we need the government stepping in any kind of like hard way to say you cannot have an abortion. And certainly like a 6-week abortion is ridiculous. Okay, so I realize it's past 11, so I actually have to ski-daddle. So the thing that they tell, like at the end of all YouTube videos where they tell you to like click on one of these like things to watch more videos. Yeah, I've been meaning to film one of those. So that's what I was doing. I was just setting it up to film one.